Hi everyone, so yesterday I posted a video of me talking trash about a book pretty much and calling it the worst book I ever read. And I do think I was being honest, and it's not like I feel bad about reviewing books negatively, but I just wanted to sort of switch around a little bit with this video. Not just talking about books that I love, but also looking at negative reviews of books that I love to see sort of what it's like to be on the other side, to be the one whose favorite books are being bashed or what have you. And this idea has been done before several times. I've seen it on BookTube many times before, but I thought it would be interesting to hopefully post it on the 14th or 15th, because I did want to make a video about romance novels and have that up on the 14th, but I guess overestimated how fast I would read those books, and it's actually taking me longer than I expected. So it's gonna take a few more days before I post that one. But in the meantime, I want to talk about 1-star reviews of my favorite books, or books that I rated 4 stars or 5 stars. Pretty much all of these are books that I have mentioned before. The first one that I'm going to look at is Ficciones by Jorge Luis Borges. And the thing, I wanted to have it first, to get it out of the way, because there's not really that many English language reviews on this one on Goodreads. Someone's saying, so not for me. I'm sure this is a genius. Let me have my laptop here. I'm sure this is a genius philosophical South American masterpiece. It bored me to tears. I don't like this review, not just because it's a negative review of a book that I like. Can you hear the sirens? I hope you can't, but not just because it's a negative review of a book that I like, but also because I hate when people say things like this. Like, I'm sure this book is great, but it's just not for me and it's boring. It's really strange, don't you think, to say that you're sure a book is great, but you're rating it 1 star. Like, don't you think it's kind of contradictory? What I mean to say is that if you read the story and you didn't like it at all, what makes you so sure that it's a masterpiece? Like, what would make it a masterpiece then? And also, like, calling it boring, it's really, I don't know, I tend to stray away. Sometimes I do it, but I tend to not want to call books boring, because I feel like that doesn't really tell you anything about what the books really have as problems. And I feel like there are things that are boring for some people that are not boring for others, and of course reviews are always subjective, but every time someone says that something is boring, I always want them to elaborate, like, why is it boring? The reason, I think that there are maybe some people who think that this book, Ficciones, is pretentious or something. I think it's because it's essentially a collection of short stories that talk about things like language, and there's sort of an exploration on writing and making stories and stuff like that. I would say that's basically what makes this book interesting to a lot of people, including me. Aside from some other things, I think the writing style is great. Obviously, characters are not really the stronger point, I would say, of this short story collection, so to speak. But at the same time, it's not really about the characters at all, really. They're essentially just tools. And I tend to give a lot of importance to characters, but I think that it also depends on the type of story that we're talking about and what the story is trying to do. And maybe there's people who just give much more importance to characters, even more importance to characters than I do, and they can't really imagine reading a story and not really caring about the characters, or not having them be important in the story, so to speak, as as individuals, and not just as the people that are just kind of making the story happen. But I mean, I think it's a great book, and I'm not sure, maybe the translations aren't that great. Number 2 is The Letter Killers Club, and there's only 2 1-star reviews for this book. It's not a very well-known one. This was in my 2020 favorites, and there's a lot of low ratings, but only 2 1-stars, like I said. It has an average of 3.77 on Goodreads, so people were kind of mixed about it. But this guy says, utterly unreadable, loathed it, seriously regret wasting the time it took to read this, and abandoned it halfway through because of it was making me lose faith in life. Skip this, it tries way too hard to be literary. I don't really know why there is so much hostility of this person towards this book. It's really strange to me. Like, what is there to hate about this book? And I guess I see why this book could be considered pretentious. It actually has a lot to do in common with Ficciones, in which it sort of comments on writing itself and on language itself. And because the book is essentially about a group of people who don't write down the stories that they write because they feel like a lot of it, well, to simplify it, they feel like a lot of it is lost when it's written down, as opposed to being told. So they basically sit down and tell their stories among each other, and they receive criticism and stuff like that. But I don't really see what is so pretentious about this book. Like, I see how it can seem like it's trying to, convey something or trying to be deep, I guess, but I feel like it's not like one of those books that is trying to confuse you, or it's purposefully being vague or ambiguous or anything. And the writing style is also not super descriptive or anything that this would deserve to be called too literary or trying to be literary. Like, I don't really understand why that's a criticism that is given to this book. The second one that I found just says, "Shut up, I don't care." So next one is going to be Watchmen. I think this was the most popular one out of all the 1-star reviews. And it says, I'm going to summarize it a little bit at some points because it's kind of longer. She says, Alan Moore is the most overrated comic book writer ever, and this graphic novel is overblown, pretentious, and most unforgivable of all, boring. I don't know what is boring about it. I mean, there is a lot of action in the story, there is a lot of conflict. Now, to be fair, she kind of does go a little bit over that, why she thinks it's boring. She says, to be fair, I'm somewhat of a snob when it comes to my reading habits. First and foremost, I want to be entertained. If the story happens to be deep, thought-provoking, or groundbreaking as well, that's the icing on the cake. And the bottom line is that this book simply does not entertain me. It was too busy trying to be deep and meaningful and teach us a lesson to actually do anything as lowbrow as make compelling characters the reader can identify with and have them do interesting and entertaining things. While I love characters who are sucky human beings in small doses, stories where damn near everyone sucks like this one get on my nerves. I don't like reading stories filled with a bunch of irredeemable emo asshats who do shitty things to each other and to humanity in general, and where the themes of the story are pounded into your face with the delicacy of a sledgehammer. So clearly not my cup of tea, but I'm obviously in the minority on this one. So this person obviously thinks that most of the characters, if not all of them, are terrible people and completely unlikable. And I saw a lot of reviews really say that pretty much everyone in this story is horrible, and I think it's really strange to me. I mean, because to me the only two characters that can really be completely unlikable and like you don't necessarily want them to do well, or you don't really empathize with them maybe, are the comedian and Rorschach. And even Rorschach, his misogyny isn't even political. It's him being traumatized, it's more about that than anything else. And at the end of it all, he does have some principles. He does, at some point, save a woman from being raped. You're supposed to see him as a hypocrite, in my opinion, because even though he does save a woman from being raped and seems to have these principles, he also defends the comedian who, But again, he's a complex character, and I did like him, but again, he's one of the few characters. Him and the comedian are the only ones that are, I understand if people don't like them, of course. But it's really strange because to me, most of the other characters, except for the villain that, the character who becomes a villain near the end, to me, most of the characters, except for those three, are likable, or at least they're sort of like, regular people, basically. Not regular people as in normal humans, but they seem to be morally gray, or maybe a bit more towards the good side, And I actually thought it was a very smart decision on Alan Moore's part to have the comedian die at the very end, because at least you have the satisfaction from the beginning that he's dead now. And Rorschach is, I guess that he's a bit too heavy into the story, and maybe that's why people feel like all of the characters are terrible, because the ones that are terrible are also the ones that tend to be the focus of the story. So maybe that feels a bit to a lot of people that most of the characters are terrible, even if it's really just a handful of them. And to be honest with you, I didn't necessarily feel like this book was that heavy-handed. I mean, there were definitely some points where I understood what the story was trying to tell me, or teach me, I guess, by her standards. But it didn't do it in a way, in my opinion, it didn't do it in a way that generally bothers me, which is when a character tells you the entire moral of the story within dialogue. And there was some dialogue that sort of discussed moral elements, but I don't think it was meant to be taken at face value, so that's why I don't feel like it was very heavy-handed. So I'm not very impressed by this review, but let's get to the next one by also about Watchmen. This guy says, fundamentally every character felt like the uninspired shape, that jaded celebrity in search of catharsis at the expense of someone else. I held out hope for the comedian to play a dynamic personality, for if ever a universe needed the Joker to kick it in the ass, it was this one. Instead, the comedian turned out to be cynic, and so I didn't care who killed him. I didn't care why Rorschach was torturing people, and I definitely didn't care about the world going to hell because it was obviously not in contention. This was just more bleak fiction where naturally things do go to hell. That's not conflict. That's as destined an ending as happiness at the end of an episode of Care Bears. I do have to give it to him. In this, at that last aspect that he said, I do feel like he has a point there. There's something about dystopian fiction, or should I say, bleak type of fiction like this one, like Watchmen, where you know that it's going to have a terrible ending and there's basically no hope whatsoever. And there is a point in which if a story feels completely hopeless, it feels at some point you start to think that maybe there is no point in even finishing reading it. But I don't think that this book being just really pessimistic makes it deserving of having just 1 star of a 1-star reading, which obviously everyone values each aspect of a book differently. So if for you the sort of message or the thing to take from the story is one of the most important aspects, I can see why you would give a 1 star to something that you feel is not really that deep or what have you. But the other thing that he criticizes is how the characters are really unlikable and seem to just be evil for no reason, and I don't really feel like I don't want to say that's not fair criticism, but this book has a lot of characters, so I don't really see why the focus is always on those two. Because of course it's very easy to say, oh, these 2 characters are horrible. Like, yes, of course they're horrible. I mean, it's not that you were supposed to think that they were great or anything. The last one from Watchmen is one that says, I give this 1 star as leaving all the stars blank might simply look as if I hadn't rated it. So they really disliked it. It says, the philosophy behind this book is basically one of nihilism, or if you prefer, life is crap and then you die. He says crap but he censors the word crap, but whatever. They join those who hold dear to their heart the idea that an unsullied hero isn't possible, that ideals are something that people hold to for a reason, what they can get from it, their ideals. They look at traditional heroes, superheroes, as false. They would use the phrase goody two shoes or something of the sort. I have an issue with this one, okay? I don't really see how they managed, that sounds kind of condescending. I don't really see why they get that from this story, that the message is that traditional superheroes are too good or something. I mean, the thing with this, deconstructing the idea of superheroes is that it's not saying that the traditional superheroes are too good. What it's saying is that they aren't good. Like it's just a fantasy, saying sort of an idealized version of a human with specific powers or abilities or what have you, and who is also morally always right. And the thing is, obviously, that's impossible. That's not a real thing that can happen. The thing with constructing it is that you try to place it in a reality. And what this author did is sort of try to see how that would really work and be applied in real life. Which, of course, real life being the way it is, it wouldn't really work out. So the book is a bit pessimistic and everything, but I don't think it's trying to say that being good is wrong. So to be honest with you, I think when I will read Watchmen, I think I will look at it with sort of a different view on it, which, is of course more or less the point of this video and of reading these reviews, because I do want to look at it especially at that point of being way too bleak and hopeless, because there have been books that I have thought of, that I have read, and I've thought that maybe they were a little too hopeless to be able to say more than I think they could have said if they had been a little bit more, not necessarily optimistic, but sometimes I feel like sometimes books exaggerate the, I guess, darker aspects of real life, which, it's part of fiction. But it's interesting because, like I mentioned, I don't know when's the last time that I mentioned, I felt that type of way about Their Eyes Were Watching God, and I also said that about A Little Life, which I didn't read. I had it in my video about books that I will never read. But I said that it seemed to be one of those books that are just tragedy and, you know, nothing, there's no hope for anything, and you already know that it's gonna be ending, that the book is going to end in something tragic. But to be honest with you, I didn't feel that way when I read Watchmen. Maybe it's because I saw some sort of humor in it or something. I don't know. I'm not sure what I saw in it the first time that I didn't really feel that way. So the last one that I want to talk about is number 4. The fourth one, which is the last one, is going to be Beloved by Toni Morrison. So this is one that I found where the person clearly really hates the book. I mean, they tell you, but you know. This says, unlike really trashy novels, people actually try to argue that this is a great book, but it definitely embodies all the things that make me hate books. So this person says that this novel is too heavy-handed with this message, and also they don't like the writing style. They say that it switches awkwardly between the narration, stream of consciousness, and surrealism in intensely awkward ways. Okay, so I forgot to mention this, but I actually really like the writing style of this book. I don't love the fact that it sometimes seems to be really confusing on purpose, which is why it doesn't have a full 5 stars. I have a full review of that book. But I actually really like the fact that it seems to add a pretty strong connotation on places and objects and things like that. Like there's a very strong emotional connection between places and the people who, you know, are in them or have been tied to them. And the writing style seems to really give more importance to the sort of emotional impact or emotional aspect of the narration, so to speak, on the characters rather than on the things that happen, which I understand that that's partly why a lot of people are so frustrated with the style, because sometimes it seems like it doesn't really want you to know what really happened. And I understand that, but at the same time, I feel like a lot of people just give a little too much importance to that small aspect of the writing style. Instead of, you know, just focusing on the whole story, you know, the novel as a whole. They say, along with the heavy-handedness of the whole affair, is that this whole book is trying to make me feel guilty for being white. It is probably one of the top 3 most unfortunate things in the history of the world that slavery not only ever existed but went on for so long. But I already get that, so really, Toni, no need to beat that into my head with a bloody axe, so to speak. This is the part of the review that actually really, it doesn't really bother me. It just makes me curious as to what exactly in this novel is making this person think that that's the message of the book. Because if you, I mean, for one, I don't think there's anything in the novel that sincerely seems like it's trying to do that. And also, even if you read analysis of this book, like, that just doesn't really have much to do with that. It's more about the fact that it's not like suffering just ended as soon as slavery was abolished or anything of the sort. The people were still often tied to the past and to the places that they used to be part of or belong to even. And really, that's just one of the many things that I think that can be taken from this book, because I feel like there's a lot of layers to it, really. I mean, I would be curious to know what this person even felt. What passages or what aspects of the book make them feel like they were supposed to feel guilty or something. And honestly, the last line is the weirdest one, because you know, they're like, oh, I know slavery is bad, like, you don't need to say that much. For one, the message of the novel is not slavery is bad. I mean, it goes a bit beyond that. But also, it's like this person doesn't really understand that these things have to be discussed. It's not just a matter of saying that something is bad, you know. When people discuss slavery, what they're saying is not just a matter of saying, oh, it's bad. Like, yeah, we know. But when books like this discuss it, or non-fiction documents, essays, whatever, when those things discuss them, it's not just them saying that it's bad, it's them saying things around it, like, why did that happen? Why was it allowed to happen for so long? In fact, this review itself is sort of foreshadowing, not foreshadowing, it sort of goes around that, you know, the fact that they're admitting that there is something to be discussed about slavery. Like, why was it allowed to happen for so long? It's not just a matter of saying, we can just say, oh, it was bad and just move on. We have to know why it happened, how it happened, what conditions made it happen. You know, things that aren't just a matter of guilt. And again, I don't know what even in the story makes this person feel this way. Again, I would have liked to see what they are exactly referring to. Obviously, one of the characters is a slave owner and he's white. But I mean, that's a matter, you know, that's history as well. And also, this book does have one character who is white, but she's presented in a positive way. The white woman, or I think she was a young woman who helped the main character when she was pregnant. I think she was about to give birth. So I don't really understand why this person thinks that what they're supposed to be taking from this book is that they should feel guilty or anything of the sort. I honestly don't really see it. The second review says, unfortunately, I just could not get into this book. I tried reading it as a class assignment. It wasn't the writing style, which was a cute attempt for creativeness, but resulted in harming the progress of the story. I wasn't entertained by it. I felt no remorse or sympathy for any characters, and I was just glad to be done with it. Again, there's not really much explanation or arguments about why the characters weren't compelling for them. Again, I'm taking these reviews from these ones being the most popular, low-rated ones that I could sort of talk about, because there were some the most popular ones were, some of them were not really explaining anything, and these were sort of the better ones that I could find among the most popular ones. But I want to end on a high note with this one. I want to tell you what the third one that I found was. It says, they rape cows. That's the review. And I think it's amazing because I mean, I'm sure this person probably had, you know, other reasons to dislike this book other than that aspect, but I don't know, the review itself just makes it seem like they just really didn't like the book because something really gross happened in it. And it's very strange because there are many things to take from a book other than this thing happens in the story, which, yeah, I mean, you can obviously, you know, for one, you're allowed to dislike whatever. You give it 1 star because something gross happened. I mean, it's kind of strange, do you think? I mean, what about everything else in the story? I don't really get it. But again, I'm sure this person had reasons to dislike this book. Maybe they just didn't really enjoy reading it as a whole or what have you. But I just thought it was kind of funny. So, I guess this is gonna be the Valentine's Day video. This one about books that I love and other people hate, you know. I guess it's a sort of anti-Valentine's Day video to have. But, you know, in any case, I hope you enjoyed this video. Tell me what you think down below, and I will see you in the next one.